In just 9 minutes, uncovered 10 explosive takeaways from Tucker Carlson's talk with Margaret Roberts on why the FBI lied about the Oklahoma City bombing, erased key evidence, silenced informants, and how this 30-year cover-up changed everything. Takeaway 1. Why the FBI story doesn't add up. Margaret Roberts explains how the FBI changed its own version of events about the Oklahoma City bombing. At first, the agency released a sketch and wanted poster of a second suspect known as John Doe No. 2. 24 eyewitnesses saw Timothy McVeigh with another man before the explosion. Even the rental truck employees described 2 men renting the truck. But within weeks, the FBI claimed John Doe No. 2 never existed and tried to explain it away as mistaken identity. The most important question Roberts raises is this: why did the FBI lie? Why would they erase the second man from the story unless it threatened their version of the truth? She also points out that security camera footage showing the moments before the blast was never shown in court and has never been released to the public. Even though an FBI agent admitted in court that the tape existed, the government claimed they simply do not have it. For example, one FBI flyer clearly showed the sketches of both suspects and even offered a reward. But that sketch was later removed from the investigation without explanation. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 2, the 30-year Oklahoma cover-up. Roberts says the Oklahoma City bombing cover-up has lasted for 3 decades and is still ongoing. Most people believe the case ended with the conviction and execution of Timothy McVeigh, but she claims that only part of the truth was told. According to her, the government rushed to close the case and presented it as a simple lone wolf act to avoid deeper scrutiny. But many key facts were left out, twisted, or buried. Roberts has spent years interviewing witnesses, studying court documents, and analyzing government behavior. She found that evidence was either ignored or hidden, and whistleblowers were threatened. For example, a grand juror named Hoppy Heidelberg went public saying that federal prosecutors were steering the jury away from evidence of a second suspect. Instead of being taken seriously, he was removed from the jury and warned he could go to jail for speaking out. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 3, the murdered man they won't talk about. Kenneth Trentadue was a construction worker with a troubled past who was arrested on a minor parole violation. 2 months after the bombing, he was transferred to a prison in Oklahoma and placed in solitary confinement. Just 2 days later, he was found dead in his cell with severe injuries, bruises, cuts, and what looked like stun gun marks. Officials claimed it was a suicide, but his family and many investigators believe he was beaten to death. His brother, Jesse Trentadue, is a lawyer who began digging into the case. He believes the FBI mistook Kenneth for John Doe No. 2 and killed him during interrogation. Roberts says the most chilling part is how the government handled the aftermath. They told his family lies, offered free cremation, denied he had a wife, and covered his injuries with makeup before sending the body home. For example, when Jesse removed the makeup, he found Kenneth's throat slashed and his body covered in defensive wounds. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 4, McVeigh was not acting alone. Tucker Carlson and Margaret Roberts both questioned the official story that McVeigh planned and executed the bombing alone. The evidence points to him being surrounded by a group of people involved in extremist circles. McVeigh had former Army buddies like Terry Nichols and Michael Fortier, but he also had links to people connected to white separatist groups and possibly even foreign extremists. He moved around the country frequently, stayed in motels, and attended gun shows, often without any clear source of income. Roberts explains that the cost of his travel and lifestyle would have been tens of thousands of dollars. But McVeigh had no known income during this time. For example, he traveled for months, purchased bomb-making materials, and rented vehicles, all while appearing to be broke. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 5, was McVeigh working for the feds? Roberts explores the possibility that McVeigh was not just a lone terrorist, but may have been working with or for the government. She refers to a secret federal infiltration program called PATCON, which aimed to monitor and influence right-wing militia groups. McVeigh may have been connected to this program. She cites letters McVeigh wrote to his sister and conversations with other prisoners, where he hinted that he believed he was part of a covert operation. Some say he thought the bombing was supposed to be a demonstration or sting that went horribly wrong. Roberts points out that if McVeigh was originally working undercover, It would explain the government's panic and desire to suppress the truth. For example, one former federal operative said he saw McVeigh at a training site months before the bombing, suggesting he was already under surveillance. We're halfway through the video. Thanks for sticking with us. If you're enjoying it, hit the thumbs up and share it in your WhatsApp groups. If you'd like to support us, please tap the thanks button below. It helps us keep making great content. Drop a comment and don't forget to hit subscribe for more. Now let's continue with the video. Takeaway 6. The FBI ignored their own informant. Roberts reveals that Carol Howe, a government informant working for the ATF, had warned her handlers about a bombing plot involving McVeigh and others in a compound called Elohim City. She was embedded in that group for months and reported that they were planning to attack a federal building. She even went on scouting missions to Oklahoma City and identified suspects, including Andrea Strassmeir, who resembled John Doe No. 2. But instead of acting on her information, the government ignored her and later charged her with unrelated crimes, which many believe was retaliation for going public. For example, her detailed warnings and notes about the plot were never included in the trial. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 7. 3 men ended up dead in custody. Kenneth Trentadue was not the only suspicious death connected to the Oklahoma bombing. Roberts talks about Richard Guthrie, a known member of a white supremacist bank robbery gang linked to McVeigh. Guthrie was about to testify in court and give interviews when he was found hanged in his cell. Then there was Alden Gillis Baker, a prisoner who claimed to have witnessed Trentadue's murder. He also died in prison shortly before he was scheduled to testify. All 3 deaths were ruled suicides, but the details suggest otherwise. For example, Baker begged for protective custody after receiving threats, but the request was ignored and he was found dead shortly after. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 8. How the media helped bury the truth. Tucker Carlson and Margaret Roberts agree that mainstream media failed the public. Instead of investigating the contradictions and lies, they repeated whatever the government told them. Stories that challenged the official narrative were ignored, mocked, or buried. Independent journalists like J.D. Cash tried to raise questions but were sidelined. Roberts says the media created a wall that protected the government and made it nearly impossible for the public to learn the truth. For example, when whistleblowers tried to speak out, or when grand jurors questioned the process, it barely made the news. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 9. How this journalist exposed it all. Margaret Roberts is not just a reporter. She spent years digging into the Oklahoma City bombing, long after most of the media stopped caring. She reviewed thousands of pages of legal documents, interviewed insiders, and chased leads that no one else would touch. Her book Blowback is the result of that effort, and it presents a version of events that is very different from what the public was told. She had to fight publishers, handle threats, and work alone in many cases. For example, she found that McVeigh told multiple people he believed he was on a federal mission, but those statements were never brought up during trial. Now let's move to the last takeaway. Takeaway 10. Who really benefited from the bombing? The last question Roberts and Carlson explore is who gained from this tragedy. They argue that the bombing helped strengthen the federal government, gave new powers to law enforcement, and shifted public opinion in favor of more control. President Bill Clinton's approval ratings jumped after the attack, and he used the event to pass new laws and boost the FBI's budget. Roberts says that while the public was grieving, powerful people used the crisis to push their agenda. For example, Clinton gave emotional speeches in Oklahoma that turned him into a comforting national figure, helping him secure re-election. Here is a brief introduction about Margaret Roberts. Margaret Roberts is an award-winning investigative journalist and former news director of America's Most Wanted. She is the author of the explosive book Blowback, which exposes hidden truths behind the Oklahoma City bombing and the FBI's role in suppressing them. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support this channel, hit the thanks button below. It really helps us keep going. If you enjoyed this summary, please leave a like and share it in your WhatsApp groups. To join discussion about this video, drop a comment below. And for more videos like this, hit the subscribe button below.